Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, and this episode is brought to you by a return of a sponsor, Catatonic, for all your art needs. They're the guys that do my stickers. If you love those stickers that I hand out at all the shows, Catatonic is responsible for that, and I've been using these guys for about 3 years. If you're a band or a business or a comedian or anything and you need stickers made, or they can even make 3D toys for you, all kinds of cool stuff, man. Catatonic is the ultimate one-stop art shop. That's spelled CADATONIC.com. Follow them on Instagram and Twitter. They make all kinds of cool stuff, and I've actually known this guy for years, and he's been doing all my stuff exclusively, and it's always kick-ass shit. Check him out. Welcome him back to sponsor and Let There Be Talk, catatonic.com. All right, guys. Hope everybody's good. Sorry the podcast is up late, but I am in New York City, and I've been kind of burning it up pretty fierce. I was in San Francisco all weekend with Joey Diaz at the Punchline, and that was absolutely next level. If you're a new listener and you found me from those shows, welcome. And it was just electric. I can't tell you how insane those shows were. Joey Diaz's crowds are absolutely amazing. They love music, and they love edgy material, and they love Joey, and they embrace me, which is cool, from doing the Church of What's Happening. And man, those shows are a pleasure. It was amazing, and thank you, everyone that came out, and especially thank you, Joey Diaz. What a great weekend. But I was in San Fran, burning it up, cruising around, and podcasting and doing comedy. Got to hang out with some of my boys, Joey and Fletch from my old school hood. Joey, the old bass player in the Dean Del Rey band, which, by the way, you know how I've been going down that rabbit hole of tribute bands lately. Joey's playing in an Eagles tribute band called the Illegals. And, oh man, if you love the Eagles, you're going to want to check these guys out. They got a facebook.com/illegalsband, and check them out. Playing all over the Bay Area. And God, they sound just like they do the 3-guitar attack on Hotel California, and you're just going, fuck yeah. And they do deep tracks too, like In the City, and all the good stuff that I love about the Eagles, the deep tracks. Check them out. Do not miss that. That was kind of cool to hang with those guys. They picked me up in San Fran, and we spun up to Petaluma, California, where I interviewed my guest today. My guest today is Tom Gaffey. And you're probably going like, who's that? Well, Tom Gaffey was the owner and now is the general manager of the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma, which is basically probably the reason I'm alive, because it was the ground zero of rock and roll for me. It was a small theater in Sonoma County that had some of the most insane concerts of all time. This building, you could do a documentary on this building, all the bands that have played there, and it would blow your mind. One of the most iconic to me being Metallica. Before they started their 91 Black Album tour, they decided to rehearse at the Phoenix Theater for 2 days and let 800 maniacs in each night. I went both nights, and I still never will forget it. You can YouTube, if you just punch in the Phoenix Theater on YouTube and look at everybody that's played there, there's all kinds of footage and audio stuff. Like, recently I punched in Gamma, which was Ronnie Montrose's band and one of my favorite bands. I don't feel I talk about them enough. And every time I listen to them, I go, oh man, this band is insane. But, Gamma, Devo, Primus, Green Day, Jerry Garcia, Megadeth, Slayer. They had massive hip hop in there, Digital Underground, Ray Love, all kinds of Bay Area superstars, Y&T, Huey Lewis. It's hundreds and hundreds of the biggest bands in the industry have all played this 800-seater at one time in their career, or many times in their career. And the stories that Tom Gaffey tells today on this episode are amazing. And Tom, as a human, is what I call the Willie Wonka of rock. He cares about the community, and it's completely a kids' kind of community center now. And I was there. Kids could skateboard inside the place. It's all graffitied up. It's totally a punk rock shop. It's like a CBGB's of NorCal. So to interview this guy was pretty damn monumental to me, to say the least, man. I was in there multiple times getting goosebumps just sitting on the stage doing this interview. It was crazy to think about how 100 years ago I was just in there as a kid pushing in equipment and learning rock and roll from the ground up in this place. Everything about this building is, it means so much to me. It's crazy. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. I really do. And if you get a chance, like I said, stop in there. If you're ever in Petaluma, it's always open, and just say hi to this man. Before I do get into the episode, a shout out to Shaylani Alex for a donation on Patreon. Thank you so much. Very cool of you. And if anybody wants to donate to the podcast, it is Dean Del Rey. It's patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Check that out. And Shaylani, thank you so much for donating to the podcast. I'm coming to you from New York City right now. Another reason the episode was late was yesterday I spent the entire day on Eddie Trunk's show, and it was pretty fucking magical. I did about 3 hours on his Volume show, which is on during the day, and then I walked across the hall and we did his Hair Nation show, and I was there about 5 hours. And it was just magic. We were just ping-ponging back and forth, rallying amazing rock stories. And once in a while, the brain's working good and the stories get dusted off in my mind and they come out. And yesterday was that day. And you can check it out on Sirius Radio's playback, or go to eddietrunk.com and find out how to listen to the episodes I was on yesterday. And I'm going to do the show again a couple times while I'm here in New York. I am in New York till September 1st, which is pretty damn cool. I was going to stay till the 5th, but I just got some amazing Bill Burr dates, and they're all on my website, deandelrey.com. But you want to check it out, I'll be in Mississippi, Alabama, Iowa, San Diego, all with Bill Burr. That's pretty awesome. Some other shows coming up. I'm here all month at the Stand. If you are on the East Coast, come see me at the Stand tonight all the way till August 31st. What else I got coming up? I'm going to be, let's see, I'm looking here on my calendar. Oh yeah, looks like Chicago. Looks like I'm going to be, this isn't 100% yet, but it looks like it's going to happen. September 28, 29, 30, I'll be at Chicago, Zanies. And I'll let you know more on that probably next Monday. And then Edmonton, I'm coming back. I will be there, House of Comedy, from October 4th through the 8th. So do not miss that. This fucking calendar of mine on the iPhone, it jumps ahead a day, which is total bullshit. I haven't figured out. It only happens like when I go to like a different time zone, like New York, and then it just jumps a full day, which is just jive. I don't get it. I got to figure that out. I'm starting to get pissed about that. That could fuck you up, man, booking flights, and that's some kind of flaw on Apple's side there. But I just looked at my calendar. I was like, wait a minute. Anyway, those are some upcoming shows coming up. I thank everybody for tuning in one more time here. Shout out to my sponsor for over a year and a half now, El Cajon Harley Davidson. This episode and every episode is brought to you by El Cajon Harley. Absolutely love these guys. It's summertime, and you're going to need a Harley Davidson. You can get a Harley anytime. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be summer. Man up and ride in the rain, wind, snow, whatever. I ride 100% every day of my life. You can too. Beat the traffic, split lanes like a man. Elko and Harley. They got all the brand new Harley Davidsons in there. And I think in a couple weeks, the 2018s are about to be announced. And I'm pretty fired up. That's always like Christmas Day. I get up at like 6 in the morning, check the website and see what's coming out new. And that's coming up, man. Elko and Harley, they can get you finance, get you on 2 wheels, ride around America, and see my boy Greg Riley. Or just get your bike serviced there. You need servicing like tires, brakes, oil change, whatever. Elko and Harley has everything there. Incredible motor clothes, all the goodies. Check it out. Hit up Greg Riley. Tell him I sent you. All right, let's get into the episode right now. It is time for some candles lit with my good man right here, Tom Gaffey. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode today of Let There Be Talk. I got a fantastic guest here. I am in Petaluma, California at a venue that I probably saw some of the best concerts of my life, the Phoenix Theater. And I have I don't know, are you the owner? What are you?
No, now I'm the general manager.
General manager. Introduce yourself.
Tom Gaffey, general manager of the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma, California.
Absolute legend here. What now? As I have some insane memories of this room, of course. That hole up there where my buddy almost fell through.
Yeah, you got a hole up there?
Yeah, hole up there. Yeah. My first memory of this room, and look, I got some goosebumps because this room is so monumental in my life. But the first memory is in the 70s. It's called the Showcase Theater.
Showcase Theater.
My mom drops me off, which I just talked to her today, on a Saturday afternoon at maybe 10 in the morning for a thing called Ape Day, where I watch all the Planet of the Apes in a row.
Yep.
All of them.
I think it's 5. All day. Yeah.
All day. It was called Ape Day. It was something. Now, this, my first knowledge of this room was the Showcase, and Petaluma was really weird. It had the Showcase here, and around the corner, it had the State Theater.
We were breaking records with that theater.
They showed porn in there.
Yeah.
It was, it's so fucking weird to think about Petaluma. At the time in the 70s, it had 2 porn theaters. One was a drive-in, where when you're on the freeway, you just see BJs going down on the freeway at a drive-in theater.
And it was not well thought out.
The State Theater right there. I remember one time sneaking in the back, like maybe in 6th grade, sitting in there, me and my buddy were
watching Deep Throat.
We're watching Deep Throat, and a guy grabs our shoulder. He's like, "Can I join you?" or something. Some dude, and we fucking ran out of there so scared and never went back in there.
It was probably the projectionist. They held the record. It was in Guinness Book of World Records, and maybe still is for the longest running booking of a show, and that was Deep Throat.
And it's like, because when you think about Petaluma, it's got 2 kind of things to it. It's blue-collar farmers. Big time when I was growing up.
Absolutely.
It was chicken farmers and all of that. And actual full-blown kind of cowboys. Yes. It was really bizarre. Like if you go to McNear's or those bars over there.
Yeah, the Buckhorn.
Yeah, the Buckhorn.
And
Dreesen's especially. It would be full cowboys.
You bet.
And then you would have this full-blown rockers. And they would cruise the...
well, that was you and your friends.
Right, exactly. And, they would cruise, and there would actually be fights like, say, the Outsiders with the Socs and the Greasers. But this was the farmers and the rockers.
Kind of, but the truth of the matter is... back when I got back here in the 80s, because I grew up in this building, and I left for 10 years. I graduated high school in 73, left the place, and came back in 1983. and it hadn't changed much. And on a Friday and Saturday night in downtown Petaluma, from Petaluma Boulevard all the way up here 3 blocks up to Keller Street, it was brawls on every street, every Friday and Saturday night. And if you couldn't find somebody from a different social group to brawl, you just brawl with your friends.
Yeah.
It was kind of part of the action in Petaluma at the time.
And, you know, when you really look back at the history of this, and we're going back, Petaluma, we're talking American Graffiti.
Yes.
All the way back then, and we're talking 50s cruising and that whole rock and roll thing.
We cruised up through 73 at least. I graduated in 73, and we cruised. It was a cruising
and then
town.
The cruising hits again big time in like 80.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
go up to the Petaluma Bowling Alley, you turn around, and you come back down.
Absolutely.
And in the middle of all this, though, my point is, here's this movie theater. It's called The Showcase. And as I read up on it, which I never did until recently, I guess it was here as an opera house in the 20s?
No, it was built in, we opened the Phoenix Theater. I probably wasn't here for that. Opened on December 5th, 1904.
Right.
And it opened as an opera house built by the Hill family in Petaluma to... as kind of a gift to Petaluma by the Hill family. And they built what they had hoped would be the grandest theater north of San Francisco, rivaling anything north of here. Portland, Seattle. It was the Hill Opera House in 1904, and it was a glorious house.
Yeah, and I think what I read, and I don't know if it's true or not, Harry Houdini performed here?
Performed here, absolutely. Caruso sang here in 1906, which probably, you've done rock and roll and comedy for a long time, so you understand the concept of the one-off.
Yep.
Caruso was booked to do a gig in San Francisco, and he played in Petaluma sometime in 1906. Well, the earthquake happened in April.
Yeah.
So this, quite possibly, the date that he played here might have been his one-off to that San Francisco gig that he didn't get to play. The earthquake happened and he didn't do the gig. And because after the earthquake, Caruso said that he would never play in California again.
Wow.
Well, he didn't play in California. He never come to California again. Apparently, when they shipped his body back to Italy or something, they ended up flying him through. Somehow he had to come back through California. So he kind of missed that boat and did come back, but he was dead then.
Wow. Now, it burns a little bit.
Yeah,
They
1922.
refix it up.
Yeah,
becomes a movie
1957.
theater later on.
Yes.
Pre-Showcase, it's another name.
The California Theater.
California Theater.
It was part of the MGM UA chain.
And then sometime it turns into the Showcase.
Showcase Theater, 1967. The California UA chain was accused of monopolizing their films and showing them first on MGM UA films. A judge made them divest many of their theaters in California. This was one of the theaters they had to divest, and that was, I think, 67. That's when the Dakini family bought it and turned it into the Showcase.
Unbelievable. And really, this was the only movie theater in Petaluma.
Well, there was.
Well, the state.
If you were over 18,
porn.
you could go see.
But this is where they showed the movies.
Yes, absolutely. It was the neighborhood theater. It was just such a grand house to see movies in.
So somewhere along the line, and I looked it up, around 1980, I stumble into this place as a kid.
John Spillane.
And somebody else buys it, and you guys rename it the Phoenix because it burned again.
Well, it burned in 57. It burned in 1922. The area we're standing in caught fire because the building next door was a paint store. It caught fire and burned this part of the theater off. It was rebuilt and actually widened. We took a little bit more space. They took a little more space and took back the fly area that they were in now. The back wall was right about where the front of the stage was at that point.
Oh, wow.
Built it back, rebuilt the stage, gave us more of a fly area. But I think what they did was they took away the backstage area. This knowing that they were going to be going to silent movies in those days. They knew that their vaudeville days were pretty much over. So they kind of decided we'll have a fly area, but we're going to be aiming more at movies, which is what they did. When they reopened, they were pretty much exclusively a movie theater in those days. And it was silence, and there was a pit with an organ and all of that stuff. It's still a grand theater. That was in 22. The second fire was in 1957. A fire started in the upper lobby and burned the roof off. and quite a bit of the front section of the building. It was closed for about another year and a half to rebuild it all. Opened again, and here we are. There was an unfortunate incident, I think, when you were a kid. We were at Rock and Roll House, and somebody threw a cigarette up in the, we had that god-awful awning that was kind of falling apart and windblown. Somebody threw a cigarette up there, and that pretty much finished that off. It kind of burned off one night. I was in Tahoe, so I absolutely had nothing to do with that. Honest to God.
Now, what wipes it out as a movie theater back then? I remember it being the Washington Square Cinemas over there by Mervin's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, once that comes up, it's like a
It was the beginning of the end.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And that puts this kind of thing,
Yeah.
because that's when the multi-movie theater
Yes.
of a two-theater starts hitting in late 70s.
And then Pacific with their 8-screen. Remember, they
Right.
built that 8-screen theater on the north end of town. That's when the days were numbered for the big single-screen theater like the Phoenix. You could build a new theater with tight rooms. You would, as you're sitting in watching a movie in this building, if a car drives by outside and revs its engine, you'd hear it.
Yeah.
To tighten a big old building like this up to make it compatible?
Yeah.
With modern day theaters, we knew its days were numbered in the late 80s. And so John Spillane came in and bought it in 1979 from the Tacchini family and turned it into an incredible house. He named it the Phoenix. He brought in acts like Huey Lewis.
Right.
Just some great stuff. I think Carlos Santana played. Devo played with him.
Yep.
And he ran it through 81, I think.
Now, was that part of the Aquarium Production Company? Remember them?
I do, and yeah, it's quite possibly true.
There was that guy, Mark Castro.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
I remember he ripped me off. I roadied all day for Eddie Money. He was supposed to give me 50
Eddie
bucks.
Mahoney, yes.
And he was just like, yeah, you're not getting anything. You got to see the show free. I was like, what? And it was my first introduction of getting ripped off in rock and roll.
Oh, yeah, welcome to the business.
But that was that company, Aquarium Productions, and they were doing shows like here, the place next to the bowling alley, the VF,
The Vets Memorial.
Yeah, Vets
absolutely.
Memorial. They were doing Santa Rosa. They would do
Yes.
Napa Fair, and they were kind of a small-time promoter outside of Bill Graham.
Yeah, correct.
So I roll in here, and I specifically remember it. My memory comes and goes, which is amazing, but there's shit etched in my mind. And this, as much as I think about my rock and roll life, this is ground zero, this fucking room for my rock and roll life. And this is how it happens. There's a thing going on called Guitar Wars.
Yeah.
And they had the finals in here.
Yes.
And it was Night Ranger, which was called
Yes.
Ranger, up against Mike Varney's band called Cinema.
Yes.
And I was in the very front right there, as I was all shows here. In the front. I was always front. I didn't give a fuck. And I was in here and I thought, these bands were fucking rock stars. It was sold out, and it was basically a contest like a Battle of the Bands, but they called it Guitar Wars. And it came down to those two bands, and I fell in love with Night Ranger, which was Ranger, and Brad Gillis and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And that starts my life in this place. And from there, I see some of the most insane shows of all time in here. I'm talking about Devo on the Whip It,
it was an
Freedom of Choice. They
incredible night.
filmed a
Absolutely.
VHS in here.
Yeah.
Ramones on the Pleasant Dreams
Ramones,
tour,
you bet.
which I hung out with the Ramones after at the Best Western.
They were so accessible. That was a great.
Oh, yeah.
That
They
was
were like, come on over to the hotel. We're going to party.
Yep.
I got there. They weren't doing nothing. They were just like kind of like zombies.
Yeah, well-
Mr. Bungle, Blue Oyster Cult,
Blue Oyster Cult, yeah.
Y&T, Eddie Money.
Yeah.
But the one show,
Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis. Now let's get into the big stuff. Also, like Jerry Garcia.
Jerry
played
Garcia,
here.
absolutely.
I mean, Jerry Garcia, dude, like right in here.
Yeah.
And if you YouTube Phoenix Theater, that's
Yeah.
it. Just YouTube Phoenix Theater. You are going to see an onslaught of live performances. One of them I was here for was Gamma, Ronnie Montrose.
Oh, that was an incredible night.
Yeah.
There's a great recording of that. I finally wore mine out. They recorded that thing live.
Yep.
Had a great studio truck outside, and to this day, that was one of the best live recordings I'd ever heard. I need to find another copy of it because that was an incredible
It's
night.
on YouTube, the whole thing.
The whole thing is on YouTube.
Yeah.
With the great sound.
The great sound. Primus shot their video here.
That was great. Jerry was a race car driver. That was an incredible night. Yeah.
The history of this room is fucking insane.
Absolutely.
Now, really, and I was talking to you about this, I think one of the most insane shows I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen thousands of shows. And it was 2 nights. I sat front row balcony up there for Metallica.
91. Yeah.
Rehearsing for the
Yes.
Black Tour.
Absolutely.
Now, that Black Album Tour, and that's on YouTube, which I posted up today.
Yeah.
I still cannot believe how that night went down, because when you think about this band, by now, and Justice for All's out.
Yeah.
They're the biggest thing ever in the Bay Area, and of course, starting to get around the world. And they come in here and they play 2 nights. Now, did you have something with booking the bands?
You know what? The way I understand the way that went down, I only had something to do with booking the band because it's really weird how the Phoenix worked, because I picked up the phone. We'd been working with Bill Graham Presents on a couple of shows. They'd brought a few things in, and I'd already been hearing the rumors. Wow, you guys have got Metallica coming. No, we don't have Metallica coming. Yeah, you do. That's what we heard. Well, no, that's not possible. So when I finally got the call from the BGP people, we've got this metal band. We can't tell you who it is. Is it Metallica?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't tell you that. Well, and here's the story that I got from them.
Yeah.
So we had Megadeth several months before play here, and Mustaine was on probation with his record label. He'd gotten in trouble in Europe. Their tour had collapsed, and the label kicked him off. They agreed that he could do one other tour, and if he got through this tour, they'd take him back on. So that night that he played here, they had this huge chaperone. This guy must have weighed in about 400 pounds, 6'4", backstage. No girls, no alcohol, no guests, nothing.
I saw that Megadeth show.
It was a great show.
Insane.
And so I caught it just at the right moment. I'm heading down to that curtain right down there. And I'm going to go backstage, and their chaperone has Lars Ulrich. Yeah. And he's throwing him out of the back of the curtain there, through the curtain. He goes, "This man is not to be backstage." And so from the way I got it is, Metallica had felt so slighted by that, they ended up across the street all night drinking at Volpe's and playing with, songs with John Volpe.
Yeah.
So that was, the accordion guy. That was their memory of the Phoenix Theater. They had, so they'd been doing a tour, I think, in Japan, and they weren't necessarily getting a response that they expected.
Yeah.
So they weren't sure about this tour they were about to do in America.
Which is the Monsters of Rock tour.
Absolutely. And they decided, what I'd been told by one of the BGP guys, is they needed a place to try it out on an American audience, that material.
Right.
Well,
the Black Album.
The Black Album.
Because when you look at it, they open with Sandman.
Yeah.
They also play Sad But True.
Oh, they did the whole album.
Yeah, Nothing Else Matters.
Oh man, it was an incredible night. And they decided, well, you know what? First off, it's close to home. Second off, we can play a little shithole in Petaluma because there's only going to be 900 people there no matter what happens. If it bombs, really not that many people will hear us, and then we can readjust from there. Plus, if to have a good time, we can just hang out over at that bar across the street and play Italian songs with the accordion guy. That was the story that they gave, that I was given by the BGP people. They needed a place to practice, and they remembered Volpe's across the street, and they wanted to play here so they could hang out at Volpe's and try it on a small audience.
It was mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. It was, for me, metal was, when you were of that metal generation, you guys were learning all of your chops on the metal band. You were with Ghost Town, I think, and there was another band that you played with. AKA.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's true. I mean, you guys maybe see Dino now, but until you've seen Dino wearing spandex with his hair all spiked, you ain't seen nothing. This guy, unbelievable. But for me, metal never translated recorded. I never thought much of Metallica or even Slayer when I heard their CDs in those days or recordings. But when you get them live here, I became a fan. 2 nights of Metallica here, absolutely incredible. And seeing them live is not at all like what you get on vinyl or even on...
Especially that era. It's right when the Black Album comes out.
Yeah.
And this is before they become the biggest band in the world.
Yes.
So the rawness and the insanity of how great they are and the energy is just fucking next level, you know?
Next level. And I swear to God, and I always said this, in the 90s, we had the best audience in the world. The Phoenix audience, it was like flying a kite. You'd get it up as high as you possibly could, just to the end of the string, but don't let go of the string. And... and it was just out there and going as far as you could. And we had that, and we gave them that audience for 2 nights, and it was a great night. There's another band I wanted to give a shout-out to because it was the same way. I didn't get them until I saw them live here, and that was Slayer.
Right.
Oh, my God.
What year is Slayer?
What do you think? 94, 95 maybe?
Wow.
It was that was an incredible show. They just blew you right out the back of the room. It was what a night. And the party was from here all the way down to the parking garage. We had 3 levels of Slayer party going on in the parking garage the whole night. It was what a night. It was
Here's
incredible.
another thing about this room was it really felt like to me that Petaluma cops are really like bored and dicks,
Yeah.
you know.
In
and
those days, it was a tough crew.
it was.
Yeah.
But it felt like once you were in the Phoenix Theater, it was almost like this safe zone where anything goes. I mean, there's pyro going on.
Yeah.
There's full-blown pits. There's
Yeah.
guys jumping off the balconies.
Yeah.
There's a lunacy of drunkenness going on in
Yeah.
here that was next level. I'm
next
talking
level.
back then.
And this was in a
everybody
non-alcoholic
drank as
place.
much as they
Yeah,
could and
absolutely.
just started rocking, man.
It was again. I think our pits, our stage dives were that's what sold me on the whole thing. It was a Violent Femmes show here in I think 86 or 87, and the stage dives were so incredible. We got to keep doing this, and we became mostly a metal and an alternative house at that point for the next. Throw in a little bit of hip hop and. 80s through the 90s, up halfway through the first 10 years of 2000, when live was still live.
Right.
This place, the object was to fly that kite as far as you could and make that experience as electric and anarchistic as you could, yet within semi-safe boundaries. Really tough to explain.
Yeah.
The Phoenix in those days. You
This
would have
is
had to
pre
been there.
like suing people and stuff. Like
Yeah,
people
right.
would break bones and fights would go down.
I think it was a Fishbone. Finally, there was a lawsuit that happened in like Minneapolis or somewhere where that Fishbone. Someone was hurt in a stage diving incident, and that was pretty much kind of the beginning of the end for all of us. We all needed to take another look at it. There's nothing that to me that was as glorious. Well, I mean, there are many things, but so glorious as a night where you've got just bodies flying off the stage.
Yeah, it's
And,
like a goddamn comeback.
Oh, yeah, kind of. But the audience
But
is all
friendly.
in it. Friendly. Everybody's in it. You've got a pit circling down below you. You've got people flying off the stage. And in those days, when we didn't have barricades, we'd have the 3-man front row. There'd be one guy in the corner, and the guy in the corner, and a guy in the center stage, and we'd shift off stages. And when it was my turn to be on the stage security, that's when you realized exactly why you're doing this. Because here you are, you've got this crowd of 1,000 people out in front, and all of this energy blowing all over the room towards the stage. And then you're right between these guys up on the stage blowing all this energy out at the audience. Wow, the feeling of power and glory. Just absolutely. Well, you've known it because you've played on stage.
I played here.
And you've played before pits. You can't get higher. There isn't a drug in the world that can get you higher than being right at that pinnacle, right where all that energy meets. Holy cow, if you want to get sober, that's a way to do it because you can't get any higher than that, at least for me.
I think, like I often tell people this too, like I burned it up so fucking hard. The amount of adrenaline that was going through my body in these shows back then, it'll never come up to that again. You know what I mean? When you were at a show and the lights go down dark and the band walks on and they break into like something like let's say like Devo, you know, and they break into Whip It, and you're just going like, what the fuck? That's them, man. Weird, you know. Or a band breaks into like Gamma with Ready for Some Action.
Yeah,
that's like a punch in the face, you know. Dun 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 dun. Ready for some action. You're like, let's do
Unbelievable.
this.
Yeah, let's do this. That was the Gamma was in the seated days.
Yeah.
And it was still the energy was high. That's got to be in my top 10 shows in this building. That was such an incredible night. But it was still seated. It wasn't. Boy,
It had the old movie seats.
Yeah, you bet. Once the seats came out and we turned into a pit house.
What year do you take the seats out?
We took them half out for the Violent Femmes, 86 or 87.
And what was the decision? Like more occupancy?
No, the music was going less sit, more dance.
Right.
We had a couple of other shows prior to that needed to have space. So we started taking them row by row. We go, this one's got to go. This one's got to go. We knew that there'd be no going back to movies.
Right.
I came back to kind of help turn this back into a movie theater because that's what I did.
Now, when you come back in '83, right?
Yeah.
and it is a movie theater. Is it showing first-run movies,
No.
or is it just showing like?
They just turned into a discount house.
Right, so it's like 75 cents or $1 to see.
Yeah, it was
night?
a buck. It was a buck most every night. It was $1.75 on weekends, I think, is what I came into, and it was a mode that was working. My first night, it was decided, I was asked, can you come in and take this? The object is we're going to try and make it look good on paper for a while, and the owner's going to sell it because they've got to get out of this building.
So you want to pump up some numbers so it looks like it's generating
Absolutely.
income.
And discount was the way to go in those days.
And that was true. Every theater, all of a sudden, that wasn't a multiplex, had the dollar night.
Yeah, had dollar nights and discount, and that's what we were doing here. And boy, I came in that first night. They called me in early. I had just closed the theater somewhere else, and I was going to be coming. I was going to take some time off, and maybe I had already kind of made a deal on an RV. I was going to spend a year tripping through the country. But will you take the Phoenix? Oh, the Phoenix, that's where I grew up. That's the old showcase. Yeah, I'll do a 1-year thing with the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then I'll take this vacation. And can you come this week? Oh, man. Well, all right, I'll come this week. I came in that first night, and it was it was Petaluma the way I remembered it. Brawls from Petaluma Boulevard, Kentucky Street, and up to Keller Street. I walked into this place. It was wall-to-wall kids. And
here watching a movie?
Well, yes. And I walked in, and it was just pretty much, I walked in, and the old manager pretty much walked out, here, take it. Oh, God. And it was intermission time. And I looked around the lobby, and there's this whole crew of kids up and down, sitting on the stairs. Well, I was an old movie guy. You can't do that. Yeah. That's not safe. So I go up to this group of kids, and I said, guys, I can't let you sit on these stairs like this. It's a fire. Well, who are you? Oh, I'm the guy running this place. And this kid, Augie Byrne, that's one of my favorite stories. He's a good friend now. Augie looks at me, he was like in 7th grade, so he goes, no, man, we run this place. Oh, fuck yeah. Game on. I'm in this. Yeah, my tie came off, and it was like, boom, it was like pits and movies.
It's crazy because when I look at you, dude, you seem like you're the same age as when I met you. You were always this Willie Wonka of rock. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Weird.
You were this guy like, who is Tom Gaffey? Why? And you really, really are the heart and soul of this damn building, man. Because without you, I mean, you got to think about what you've turned it into. It's like a clubhouse now. It's if you look in here and you check some photos on my Instagram, which will be up, there's skate ramps in here.
Yeah.
The entire thing is graffitied.
Yeah.
And it's a clubhouse, and we'll get into how that happens. But when you first come in, are you a little annoyed at like rockers that are always high and kids that are skaters and BMXers that are trash and joint? Are you like, fuck all these guys? Or how are you so cool about it?
It was Doc Naffey, Bill Sobranis. When I was a kid working here, I ran projectors, sold candy, sold tickets, and all those things that you do as a kid in a movie theater. And from 7th grade through 12th grade, that's what I did as a kid, and we went to school. And people would come by throughout my times here, and somebody would come in and go, oh, my God, the old California theater. I remember this from when I was a kid, and do you remember Doc Naffey? Well, I never got to meet Doc Naffey. He was the manager here in the 30s and the 40s, and they would tell me stories about how he would make everyone feel like it was their place, and it felt like home to them, and everybody loved Doc Naffey. And the more I'd hear this, the more I'd think, God, I'd like to do that. Of course, I knew by that point there's no money in that, but I do remember it was maybe 8th or 9th grade, maybe 10th grade. I was sitting right on the edge there, right at the corner. That was my favorite spot to sit in this building, looking back at the theater one afternoon before I opened it for a movie theater. And I prayed, God, I want to come back and do this. I want to come back and run this place. Here's what I learned about that. And I didn't learn that until I got into rock and roll. When you make a prayer or a deal with God, get a writer.
Yeah.
I meant as a movie theater. Honest to God. I said I want to come back and run this place. I thought as a movie theater, son of a bitch, here we are doing this. But it's the only way to make this work at the time. And that time, that's the other thing I need to remember about the theater is it's a building that tells you what it needs when it needs it. It started as an opera house. It did vaudeville. It did silence. It did talkies. It did rock and roll. It did movies again. It's always in constant flow. How can we use it the most? This building wants to be used. It wants to be loved. And It was the kids when I got here that first day back. I realized, my God, it was wall-to-wall kids. It was all your friends.
Right.
Lance Brown when he was in junior high and that whole crew and all the guys from Cross-Eyed Indians.
Cross-Eyed Indians. Forgot about that.
Those guys were all junior high kids here. Clee, I think you remember Clee and his crew. And so it was all those kids about to be rockers then. They were young kids, and we knew that whatever I was doing here as movies, its days were numbered. They'd built an 8-plex on the other side of town. There was already, the Washington Square was going to 4 screens. Couldn't do movies much longer. How can I best use this place? And I learned it was the 3-no method. Hey, man, can we do rock and roll here? No, I'm a movie guy. I don't do rock and roll. Okay. No, man, we really want to do shows. And it was Setakana.
Yeah, Setakana.
One of the first shows I did here was a battle of the bands with Setakana and a bunch of the younger bands, and I think Setakana ended up winning it that night. And
Setakana,
you bet.
That was the first show you do?
That was one of the first shows I did here. Some other friends had rented it. I was in partnership at that time with the guy who owned the Katati Cabaret.
Right.
So we did get a couple of other things. The Neville Brothers came in and some stuff like that, and that was wetting my teeth, but that was all them doing these shows. They do a one-night rental. It was a seated show, and we do those shows. And I decided the kids want to do their own show. Let's do, can we? No, you can't do that. Please, can we do that? No, you can't do that. Come on, we want to do it. All right, fine. Third no. Yes. All right, let's try it once. And there was really no going back. The same with once we realized this is what the kids want to do with this place.
Yeah.
I know I can't keep getting movies. I was a film booker in those days as well, and I knew what was going to be happening to these old big single screen theaters. I was supposed to help sell this place. The reason it didn't sell is because pretty much the day I got here, Governor Duke Majan in those days signed a bill he said he would not. Brick buildings in California must be earthquaked, and if they are not, you're grandfathered in, but once it's sold, it's condemned until the earthquake work is done.
They got to do the fabrication like Bill Graham did at the Fillmore.
You bet. And that's
millions.
It was in those days. Nobody knew.
Right.
We assumed it would be turning what could have been an easy $600,000 sale to about $1.5 million at least. No way you can cap that out. So you need somebody stupid enough that has no concept of how money works, and that's always been me. Yeah. The building. What does this building need? Let's do that. And it took us a while to get the earthquake work done, and it's finally done. And it required us turning into a nonprofit and having a group of friends come in and help with that project.
Now wait a minute. So you're grandfathered in. So it doesn't sell, eventually it does sell, and you had to do the earthquake.
Yeah, that was in 2001.
Oh, so fucking years later.
Yeah, years later, I held the lease on this thing through, through 2000, from about 80.
You held it personally?
Yeah, I held it personally.
At what point do you get the lease?
I think 86.
86. What happens? The guy goes, I can't sell it.
They can have it. We closed it. Here you go.
Closed it?
We're closing it. Tom, your year's up. We can't sell it now. I don't know. Do this building. It was Ken Frankel. He owned the great guy. I like Ken an awful lot. He also owned the Cabaret in Katati, so he was doing. That's where I saw Operation Ivy and some of the first punk that I saw when we decided. I think I'm going to do rock and roll there. Well, hey, why don't you come and learn how to run a rock house? Come to the Cabaret and work for me for a few months, and let's see what you think.
Yep.
And that's where I got to see MDC, the Beatniks,
all that.
Oh my God, some of the greatest.
What a room, man.
Oh, what a room. John Hyatt. I remember sitting at the bar in the Cabaret with John Hyatt, and John is we were talking, and I was paying him out. He goes, "You know why I like this building so much? This is about the Cabaret. Why do you like it so much?" He goes, "Because it's built like the inside of a mandolin."
Yeah,
and it was such a glorious.
It was
building.
weird. It was like a boat.
Oh, it was. It was one of the most beautiful wooden buildings, and the fact that we couldn't keep that going as a club is sad, because that was one of the best. When that room was tuned,
my buddy bought it after Steve Heffelfinger. I started booking it.
Yeah,
we had 2 live crew there. I'll never forget it. Right when the thing and helicopters flying over, and the cops said, "If you have 2 live crew, we will pull your shit forever." And we're like, "We're already sold out. It's going on." And they thought 2 live crew was dangerous or obscene because of that, that stuff going on down in Miami. And we have 2 live crew, and the whole the city was going nuts.
Yes,
man.
It was. Well,
and 2 live crew were so safe. You know what I mean?
It really was. We had to sneak them in when we had them. They came in with some other act that was coming, and they did that tune, Ghetto Booty, Shake Your Ghetto Booty. And I have to say, culturally, I thought that was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen on stage. It started with them standing over these women, and the women were all shapes and sizes, all in tribal garb, and they were singing this song, Shake Your Ghetto Booty, but by the time the tune was over, they were on the stage and the women had risen up and were standing over them. And I don't know if they meant it to be that way. I hope they did.
Yeah.
It was one of the most beautiful statements about the maternal society. And a lot of the African societies were really more a matriarch than a patriarch in many ways.
Yeah.
I thought culturally that is a glorious statement. I love that band, really, but we had to sneak them in as well.
Yeah, man. It's interesting to think about how the Katati Cabaret and the Phoenix Theater have had so many iconic concerts, you know? And a lot of people could say like, oh yeah, well, there's all those buildings across America are like that. Yeah. But not every fucking night like what was going on around here. It'd be like every other night there'd be some, you know, Y&T, 415, Eric Martin Band, Eddie Money.
I think Eric Martin got served by somebody on the stage that one night.
Wow.
Didn't a process server come down and hand him that was also a classic moment, as I recall.
So the guy can't sell it, and he just gives it to you?
Well, they boarded it up.
Oh.
But I'd been here for a year. I got to know the kids and everybody that was using it. And here it was. I drove by it, and the kids were all still outside.
Just out front?
Yeah, out front. And I was just, no, I can't do it. First off, this was the first place I got involved in the movie industry. This was my best friend all through high school. It kept me alive when I was a kid. And it was boarded up on my watch, and I can't do that. So, yeah, I called Ken and decided that I would lease it from him. Yep. And that was probably 86 or 87. 86, and that was it. And then it was Laurel Pine with Eccentrics came in right after that and said, look, I want to rent the building for a night to bring in Violent Femmes.
Yeah.
Oh, what's Violent Femmes? I'm not sure what that is. And one of the kids said, oh, yeah, you want to do that show.
So you have no idea about rock and roll scene. You're just a movie guy.
I'm a movie guy.
And all of a sudden, a lot like Ness at Mabue Gardens, who has a Vietnamese restaurant, all of a sudden, you're in a rock and roll scene by rental of a building.
Yes.
I didn't fucking know that.
Yeah, man. It was Laurel Pine and Eccentrics, and then after that it was Red Hot Chili Peppers and No Means No, and just some incredible shows.
No Doubt, all that stuff.
No Doubt,
Green
that
Day.
was a great Green Day, absolutely.
No FX.
No FX. Oh yeah, I mean it's just so many greats. Again, Slayer and Metallica and Megadeth, and oh my God.
Now all of a sudden you have to start making a grip of cash, right? I mean they're renting the building from you, but you're selling drinks and shit. Right?
No, we've never been alcohol.
Well, they had like was that like the Elks Club would bring in?
That was Spillane. When Spillane was doing it in the 70s, the late 70s, 79, 80, halfway into 81.
I remember that. Upstairs
they had the bar upstairs. And here's the thing that I find fascinating, but I understand it. You can sell this place out every night and still be broke at the end of the month.
Wow.
It's just the way it is. We've always been broke, but the Phoenix is... It's like I stepped into a deal with the Phoenix. If you if you'll do this, if you'll keep my doors open, I'll make sure you get what you need. You aren't always going to get what you want, but you're going to get what you need. And
you mean the spirits of the building?
Yeah, spirits of the building. I've trusted this building all my life, so I was willing to give it that ride, and that seems to be the way it is. And the other rule is you need to make damn sure that everybody that needs this building, when they need it, it is expected that I will make it available. And that's the toughest one to follow, and that's even people that get thrown out of here. There are some people we've had to throw out over the years for whatever grievous incident that they'd been in the middle of.
Like what? You mean promoters or bands?
No, people. The people that, Petalumans in particular.
Gotcha.
The people that need to have this building. There are people that absolutely, this isn't just my building. There are people that count on these doors being open every day. And it was that way back then. And I need to make sure that I don't miss that person. Even if I throw somebody out, there's got to be a way back in. If you can get your shit
I was thrown
together.
out of here, many times. I remember specifically, I think it was Eddie Money. I bought back then. You'd go to Volpe's over there sold booze.
Yes.
And you'd stand outside and you go, "Hey, Mister, will you buy me a bottle of Jack Daniels?"
Yeah.
Like people would buy kids booze. You give them money. They go, "Here, get out of here."
Yeah.
I bought a bottle of Jack Daniels, and they didn't have Coke, so I had root beer, and I mixed all up, and I ended up vomiting in here. They threw me out the side door, I was out there on the side. My buddy was taking care of me. I could never drink Jack Daniels again, just the smell of it. But I did learn one thing early on in rock and roll, and this was the savior to my whole thing of seeing every show here. I would come down at like 3, and I'd say, "Hey, you guys need help loading in?
Yes.
And I would load in, and then you would have to load out at night, but I would just disappear for that.
Yeah, sometimes they'd take your driver's license so you can't get away.
But I would load in, and then I would be here, and I would watch Superstars sound check.
Yes.
And I would watch the roadies set up the gear and all that. And then by the end of the night, just seeing what went down, and I learned all the mechanics of
bet.
rock and roll from
By
that.
the time you got into rock and roll, you'd already learned the basics
I already
of
knew it,
stagecraft.
man. You load in at 3, you sound check around 6, then you go upstairs and party until you're on at 11.
Yeah,
You know, that's how it
absolutely.
went.
You
But-
know, the Stagehands Union out of San Francisco is always hiring, and we've sent a lot of our kids that started doing exactly what you did right to that union. And that's a great union. If anybody's out there looking for a gig and wants to get involved in that industry, check out the Stagehands Union in most of your large markets. They're always looking for people, and they pay well. And you had the knowledge. If you needed anything to fall back on, you knew you go out to the truck, you roll the equipment to the stage, and you go back out to the truck. And that's all they want to see, that you know to go back to the truck, back to the truck.
Yep.
And
then you were in.
And then you were in.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about fucking for some of the greatest shows of all
Yes,
time. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And meeting the
Absolutely.
people, getting
Yeah.
guitar picks,
Yeah.
and being like, "Holy shit, man, that's fucking Eddie Money
It
right
turned
there."
you
Yeah.
into a rocker of
Yeah.
some esteem, as a matter of fact. You guys had it going on.
It was fucking. It was going on now.
Put you next to Steve McDonald, and it was like, who has the best hair here?
Yeah. I was with Steve yesterday.
You guys nailed
Hilarious.
it. Oh, far out. What a guy.
Now let's talk a little bit. You're running it. Things are going good.
Yeah.
You're having shows galore. There's filmings in here. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, Primus.
Yeah.
You know,
We lived through
before
Guar.
you, Devo shot the thing.
Yeah.
Now you're running for a lot of years, and then it starts to die out. Right? What happens?
2000s. You guys grew up. First off, it was the first Exodus was about 94, 95. The punks grew up over 21, and it didn't fly that we didn't have alcohol.
Right.
So we really started losing the punk and the grunge because things changed a little bit when Nirvana came along. Metal was kind of phasing its way out.
Right.
I remember it was one night. Boy, it was, I can't remember what band it was, but it was so thick with hairspray in that back room.
Yeah.
I was choking. And I came out and I said to myself, my God, if I got to go through another year of this kind of metal, I've got to quit.
I
And
played
boom,
here with Vane.
with A, you bet. And
Yeah.
it might have been that last
Two Lane
Vane show.
Blacktop and
Oh,
Vane.
yeah.
I got a
You-
laminate from it. I showed it to Flex.
I
He's
hope
like,
so.
what?
Oh, yeah.
right.
You
yeah.
bet.
Two Lane
Davey Vane.
Blacktop Vane in like 96 or something.
Yeah, but see, and that was towards the end for that because Nirvana came along and you didn't have to do your hair anymore. You
Right.
could be a little grungier.
But why did that kill it? Because
Well, it just killed. It kind of changed the whole punk thing. We weren't getting young bands trying to be Green Day anymore.
Right.
Now they were all coming and doing Teen Spirit. But what happens is every generation grows up, and the Phoenix Theater does not have alcohol. And
so you need the new kids,
We had
and maybe
ska.
they're not into going to live shows anymore. They're going to raves.
That's
at that
where it
time.
ended up. Oh,
I
the
think
raves.
raves is really what really started
that's
killing
part
some
of
rooms.
it. Electronica, and that's exactly correct. Now
Right.
it's all in live. I was at a symposium last night for the movie that we were talking about, Turn It Around,
Yeah.
about the punk scene in the East Bay, and they were wondering what's going on. Well, what's going on is it's a different and the best example of how to make it in this market. And I hate to, and although I don't know, people like him. Justin Bieber
Right.
climbed his way up on YouTube. The kids are all watching now. When you even go to a live show, I wonder how many are watching the show or
They're
how
not
many
even
are
watching
looking at
the
their
show.
phones. They're looking at their phones. They're recording or whatever. They're not seeing it live, even when they're in the building live. So that's changed the way they experience it now. So it's become more of a singular. You can do all this at home and never leave your house, and if that's what you're into, that's cool.
I don't think the memories would ever be etched in people's minds like me
No.
because, it's funny when I think about when the internet and smartphones really hit. I don't really have much memory from that era. I was just telling Fletch on the way here, I go, my memory's kind of gone. But it's not
Welcome to the
going
party.
from like 96 back. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's from late early 2000s to now that it's all fried, and I think that's a lot to do
you're
with
seeing it all through the
smartphones.
screen.
There's no heart and soul memory there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no
Absolutely.
fucking me and this band and
Right.
eye contact the guy made when he went into the solo and threw a pick at me.
Darn
you know?
straight. It isn't. But for some reason, that's where we're at. And so it's tough for us. We'll have the same young players come through that we had 20 years ago. It's almost virtually the same kids, and just different bodies. But now their friends aren't coming. And you know what? There was something else I wanted to mention about that. You know what really helped in the days when you were a kid? Kegers.
Kegers. We just said it. I played a 25 Keger at the memorial up there, and I was just telling Fletch, I go, dudes would go, hey man, we're having a 20 Keger and we're going to charge $10 a head. It's all the beer you could drink. And Vicious Rumors is playing and Roadrunner. And I couldn't believe, like cops, they would come at the end of the night.
Could you believe that? Yes.
Yeah, and it was just all minors drinking.
Yes, all minors drinking. You can't do that anymore. If you want to see what that was about, it was Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Check out that movie. That was the filmed, supposed to be in 1976, but that went on all the way through the late 90s
100%.
until finally cities decided, wait a minute, we got kids drinking beer in their families' backyards. Well, you can't do that anymore.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you can't do it anymore. And that was a great way for young bands to get started. I'm going to have this big party in my backyard. Do you want to play with your band?
10
yeah, we'll play.
Keger.
Yeah, whatever.
And they'd put flyers out.
Yes.
There would actually be flyers out.
Oh,
hey,
yes.
10 Keger
Yes,
on
10
McNair
Keger.
Road. And you go to some fucking guy's ranch, right?
Yeah.
You drive down this dark fucking muddy road, and you would park
Out
on
on
the
San
side of a hill.
Antone.
There would be no lights. And then you'd walk down this farm, and all of a sudden look down on the farm,
Boom.
and there would be thousands
Woodstock.
of kids.
Yes.
Thousands. And they're drunk, and there's rock and roll
Yeah.
going. And then the cops would come like 4 or 5 hours later, and they just go, break it up.
Break it
like
up.
a scene from Rebel Without
And they
a
let all
Cause.
those kids drive home.
They drive home. No problem. They
Wow,
go,
no,
sorry,
it's nuts.
dude, we're out of here.
Yeah,
They
we're
go,
out here.
get home.
Get home. That was it's a different world now. But that was a great way for a lot of youngsters to break their band in, playing those parties. And I have to admit, probably it's a good idea we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
But that's how word of mouth happened.
Oh, yes.
That's how
the young-
grassroots fucking thing happened. All the way back to Van Halen. When you read about Van Halen in this new book I'm reading, they would play these big backyard parties.
Yes.
And as I read that, I go, I played 1 million of those. And they were all out in chicken farms
Yes.
and chicken coops and
People's
in Santa Rosa,
backyards.
people's backyards.
Yeah, you bet.
And then the people would see the band and they'd start spreading the word like, holy shit, man. You know, I saw Vicious Rumors last night, man. They got a new singer. They're incredible.
Yep, at the parties. We had a hard and fast rule at the Phoenix for a long time. No shows on graduation night because you can't beat the free beer.
Right.
Because there were kegers all over town. No shows on New Year's Eve.
Yep.
Because you can't beat the kegers in town. And because we didn't sell alcohol. But alcohol drives rock and roll to some degree.
It puts the electricity into it.
It does. The rule that I would always tell a young kid, we're going to go play this kegger. Great. Here's what you want to make sure the people do that are hosting it. You want to have them put the keg close to the stage.
Yeah.
So the audience is always there. If the keg is over the hill, half your audience is not going to be there.
That's genius.
Yeah, I know
I
that.
never even thought about it.
Oh, it's
That's
really
genius.
important.
So while they're waiting in line, they're watching your band.
they're watching your band play. Absolutely. It's really important. But
So it starts to the second way you got the lease and it starts to die, and at one point it's going to go up for sale, right?
yeah, it was always for sale.
Right. Oh,
I held
always.
this lease with this hanging over my head, but we were a big, large theater needing earthquake work and really a single-use theater. And up until just recently when people are starting to turn these, the old single screens into, you can see it at the Uptown now.
Yeah.
And it took them a couple of years to get their feet rolling and get it going, but I think they've got a good rhythm going, and maybe they're doing okay. I can't tell, but it would require to turn this into, I've got a $3.5 million project. One day when I finally leave, this was my best friend, and the best thing I can do is try and get it back to the same shape that I found it in.
Right.
Because this has been rock and roll now since '87.
You're going to redo the inside?
Oh man, yeah. It needs. First off, we've got a ticking time bomb. We have to have the fire sprinkler system in by the end of the year, according to California.
Wow.
I think a lot of the communities are pushing it back because all of these old brick buildings and all these old buildings, that's about $100,000 project.
Wow.
We're putting the money together. We've had some crews come in and give us an idea of what it's going to require, and we're working on it. But this again is my best friend, and I would love to have that sprinkler system anyway. So I want that done. There's so much that needs to get done. The balcony needs to be turned into a high-tech balcony now. I've got that all decked out how I would do that. You could almost have your own showroom up there with a drop-down screen.
You mean you would change the balcony into a second showroom?
Not exactly. It'd be a balcony for most shows, but if we had a small, tight screening or something like that we wanted to do, all you do is you drop a screen.
Show movies in there?
Yeah, but this type of movies we'd show would be director's cut, first-time showings and things like that, premieres and all of that.
Like an art house.
Like an art house. But you'd only do it occasionally. Again, you just want to turn this building into ready to do what do you need to do, how do we do it?
Right.
It wants a new sound system eventually, although I have always been a fan since the days of Primus when they brought those turbo systems in. The turbo sound system, that was my favorite. That gave you the cleanest, best garage sound you could hear. We ended up with just a Pasley's MSL3s, Meyer's first generations, and I just love this sound.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm here, I'd like to keep my MSL3s, but one day we're going to have to go digital here, and we're not. We've got these analog boards, and people are coming through going, what is this?
Right.
It's an analog.
Like you get a tour manager, and he advances the show with you, and he goes, what fucking gear are you from, 78? And you go, Gamma left it here.
Yeah, actually, Grateful Dead for the longest
Grateful
time.
Dead?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, we had Phil Lesh and his wife donated our stage system to us.
No shit?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been really good to us over the years. Because, Ian Dubois, a kid that grew up here doing sound with The Conspiracy and stuff like that as a kid, ended up going to work for Ultrasound, who we got all of these MSLs from, and got hired out of Ultrasound by the Dead. And so he had been doing a lot of work with Phil Lesh and all those guys over the years. He put in for part of their grant stuff, and they said, yeah, let's do that. So they gave us this. Our old Crest board, God only knows where we got that. Our original board, that old Peavey we had over here, came also from the Dead.
Wow.
And we've just been we've had the good luck of having a live giving rock and roll scene in the Bay Area.
Isn't it crazy how you're a movie guy, and now how many years has it been? Like 20, 30?
Yeah, almost 30 years.
Almost
of rock
30
and roll.
years.
Well, 30 years in 87.
And you're
17.
spewing out gear specs and everything. Like, you're a 100% rock and roll guy now. At one point,
That's part of
do
the
you
business, yeah.
stop in your sleep, laying in bed one night and go, I'm fucking rock and roll, man? You know what I mean?
Well, I've always played guitar.
Yeah.
And been in bands off and on all my life. So I always thought I would be rock and roll. You and I both discovered what the rock and roll dream is all about.
Yeah.
You better be damn happy playing music and not worried too much about making money.
Yeah.
It's like a high school basketball player. The amount of high school basketball players that get to go pro or football players is infinitesimal.
Yep.
So you better have a damn good time doing that and not be in it for the cash. So, but it's the same thing. I had to learn everything I could about projectors when I was a movie guy, everything I could about, that end of the business. Once we went into rock and roll, I needed to bring myself up to speed with the equipment as much as I can. If you end up getting me as a mixer on mixing your sound one night, oh yeah, you're doing it by the seat of your pants. I can do it if I got to, but you don't want to look out there and see Tom Gaffey running your sound that night. And if it is, you better hope it's just going to be like a couple of vocal mics, and maybe I'll have your instruments mic. But once I start getting into the subs, funny shit starts happening.
Yeah.
It's just once I got to start working
Low
with
end
the compressor.
feedback.
Yes, and working with the compressors and all that. That's where it starts to go, wait, what happened to my vocals on that? Well, I just thought I'd compress that a little bit. You probably shouldn't have done that, huh? No, dude. What the fuck?
Now, it was about to be sold a few years ago, and some like rich dudes came in and saved it for you. What happened there?
2001, 2002, it had finally sold. The people who owned it, who had always been trying to sell it, found a developer that was going to come in and not use it as a theater.
Right.
He was going to tear down 2 or 3 of the walls and turn it into an office building.
Right.
And that was it. I was out. And again, I already had my eyeball. This was in 2002. I've been at it for a long time. I love the place. It was in escrow, and escrow is going to close in 2 weeks. And God, so I'd pretty much found people to buy the equipment, and I'd already found an RV I was finally going to take the trip cross country for a year.
Here it is, a 20-year trip.
Yep, I was going to do that trip. And Paul Elliott, this guy whose kids had grown up in this building, I'm inventorying the equipment, marking who's getting what. And he comes down and he says, "Hey, Tom, I'm Paul Elliott. I used to play in the Creotones." "Oh, I remember you guys, the Creotones. Yeah. You guys are doing kind of this bluesy thing." "And my son's Franklin and Morgan." "Oh, of course, Franklin. I remember you, Paul." He goes, "Look, I understand you've been sold. Yes, I want to help." "Well, Paul, escrow closes in 2 weeks. I don't know if you can." And he handed me his card, and he had been one of the members of this group, Sarant, who had just sold their business to Cisco Systems for somewhere in the billions.
Wow.
Well, it had already been in the papers, and I knew exactly who Sarant was. I go, "Oh, my God. Well, Paul, you probably could, but the building's been sold." He goes, "Nope, I think we can deal with it." He put together a consortium of other Sarant people. They went to the guy who bought it. They offered him money to buy him out.
Yep.
He reluctantly, he had heard that that he'd be doing Petaluma a favor by closing this place.
Wow.
There was, let's face it, we were still by 2000 and somewhere. Petaluma was kind of coming around and not being quite the party town it was.
Oh, it's all of a sudden it's big money. You got the spill off from the techies. And after the .com crash and everything, there's still money happening.
Still money happening.
You start refacing Petaluma.
We were gentrifying. If you look at, well, you've seen it now. You know it. But it was just starting that, and it was felt that probably what we do here was maybe
a little trash.
Little trashy.
A little scar of the old days of Petaluma.
And
stuff we don't like to remember and try to hide.
Yes.
The arm wrestling statue. The ugliest dog in the world contest.
Yes.
The Phoenix Theater.
The Petaluma River.
The Petaluma River with nasty carp.
Yeah.
The mill.
The mill. And, and that was the part that, we've pretty much, in the last 10 years. So a lot of people felt that the Phoenix should stop doing what it's doing. Paul and his group decided, no, it shouldn't. And they talked to the guy. We actually had to have that developer come in and have a meeting with a bunch of Petaluma locals, at which point they almost threatened the guy.
Wow. You got to buy this.
One of our most famous artists in town, David Best, what a great guy. He got up to speak to this guy, and by the time he was done, I think the guy thought Dave was going to attack him.
Wow.
And I think he thought, it'd be better that I'm not in the middle of this. And he sold the building back to the people that who then promptly turned around and handed it back to myself and a crew of board of directors. Now we're a nonprofit.
So, is it a historic landmark yet?
No. It burned in 22, and this part of the building is only from 1922 on. It burned in 57, and that's when a lot of it really changed. The roof structure had changed. There's too many, it's too cut up to be considered historic, which saves our butt. I mean, look at what I've got here.
Yeah.
How could I do any of this if I had to?
I got you. If it had to stay
constraints
up
of being
to form, you had to keep it how it was.
If you're part of that historical designation, there's rules about what you can and cannot do when you develop this place. And granted, this place is, again, when you look at what the building is, it's a very large auditorium, and you're looking at 95% of the building. There's not much else here.
Nope. It's just a shell of an old movie theater.
Yes, it is. An old opera house.
Yep, old opera house.
That projection booth, we're looking at that back wall with the artwork back there. That's a projection booth that was not there in the original days.
Right.
And quite frankly, now that it's all videos and stuff like that, I don't mean anything against the ghost that lives up there, because there's supposed to be a ghost that lives up there.
Yeah.
I think the projection booth in its final phase would go and turn that back into a seated balcony.
So where do you sit now? Are you in trouble? Or could you ever be in trouble? Because they bought it and just gave it back to you,
it's
so
a
you own it.
Yeah, it's I'm 62 years old now. I've been here for 30 years. How much longer do I have? I don't know.
Right.
I've had a good time.
Yep.
I could go today and be happy, or I could go another 10 years and be happy. So, again, it's the Phoenix. That's where it gets a little nutsy with me and my relationship with this building. I'll kind of let it flow and see how it goes. I never know what I'm going to do from day to day.
So you wake up each day and you come down here, and it's a clubhouse for kids in Petaluma.
During the day, unless you need it.
They just come in here, and they can skateboard, they can play music, and every time I come in, there's kids in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's your day-to-day gig, and how do you get an income? Is there some kind of trustee board and you draw an income?
Our shows are doing it.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty much, any money that I make has to come from the stage, pretty much. We get donations to float the music program, which is my favorite part. We're teaching drums, guitar, vocals, piano. In here.
It's like a music school during the day.
It is, and those lessons are free.
Wow.
That's the best part. This place, I've always loved the idea of, when I was a kid growing up, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Nope.
Bullshit, man.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck you. I can get you a free lunch.
Wow.
And as long as and you can use that free lunch to learn how to do something constructive. We've had a lot of people go on to be great musicians. We've had a lot of people go on to be in the music industry, the theater industry, the stagehands union, and all of that. And if we can help move somebody along with that free lunch, let's do that.
Do you have footage and photos from a lot of the shows?
See, I don't, but yeah, it's all out there.
Yeah, because I think a documentary on this fucking place would be stellar, man.
In its time, after watching that documentary last night, Turn It Around, about the East Bay scene, I get it. It could be done.
Gilman Street scene.
Yeah, the Gilman Street scene. That was pretty cool. There is, you can go out to YouTube and see, all these shows that got surreptitiously recorded while they were going on, they're all out there.
They're out there.
I think even the Metallica shows are out there.
They're out there. I watched it today.
So it's all out there. And
MTV was here at that.
Yeah, they were.
They actually did a segment.
They absolutely were. They were backstage and interviewing people.
I watched that today.
Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff out there. And yeah, one day it'd be cool to see something like that.
It'll happen. I think it'll happen.
And that's fine. I'm in no hurry to do that. I don't think people are real. I don't want cameras coming down and trying to get the kids being kids and all that, because that never happens.
Yeah, I'm talking about the history.
Yeah, the history of the building. It's got an incredible history, and you can take that history all the way back to 1904 when it first opened up, because it opened up well, and it entertained Petalumans and Sonoma County people it's been doing that since 1904.
It's insane.
And its history is absolutely incredible. And the stories that have happened here, and that's why I knew from hearing the stories of the stuff that used to go on in this place. Right down to there was a traveling troupe of players that would come and do plays, and they'd settle into a theater, and they'd spend a couple of months in that theater doing all kinds of different plays. In the span of 1 week, they'd do 3 or 4 different plays, and they'd change it up the next week. There was one troupe, the Georgia Harper troupe, that came in, and they always made it a point to be in this theater at Christmas time, because this is where they wanted to spend Christmas. And there have been people that have been attached to this building like that since then.
Wow.
And I see that with every generation that comes through. We always have, and it was that way with me.
Yeah.
I needed it at the time. I got pulled out of the lobby one night. There was the girl who was working behind the counter got sick. I was standing in the lobby instead of watching the movie, and Mr. Dakini pulled me behind the counter and put me to work that night. And I've been here since then.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane. I really get goosebumps in this building. Let 2 more questions. One, what are your top 5 shows here?
Oof. I'd have to go with a Bungle show.
Mr. Bungle. One
of the Mr. Bungle shows. The Fishbone, there was a night of Fishbone where the stage diving was absolutely stellar.
Right.
Most incredible. But then you've got Mac Dre's Get Out of Jail show.
Wow.
Which was my first real hip-hop show. And I thought that was the most incredible night. Absolutely. That... but then you've got, it's so tough to have the top 5, because then if you're getting to hip hop, Shock G.
Yeah, Digital Underground?
Yeah. He came through one night with Ray Love.
Remember Ray Love?
Oh, absolutely.
Here's the great guys. I tell this story all the time, because Katati Cabaret, Steve Heffelberg, his partner managed Ray Love, also worked with Tupac and Digital Underground.
Yeah.
Greg, I met Greg. I never forgot it. We rode a limousine from the Katati Cabaret to the Shoreline for Public Enemy's Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing.
Fight the Power tour.
Yep.
And Digital Underground and Ray Love were the openers, and Tupac was up there and everything.
Well, that night we had Tupac, a young Tupac. The Get Out of Jail show for Mac Dre, Digital Underground, played that show, and Tupac came and performed.
Remember that?
As a kid.
It was crazy. And then also Paris, who was like he was like a Chuck D of the West Coast.
Yeah, correct. All of that. So the scene in those days, hip-hop was something else. Our last Shock G show, it was Shock G, Ray Love, and a guitar player. and they were just riffing all night. We maybe sold 20 tickets to that show, but that was one of the best shows we'd ever had.
That's incredible.
They were so on that night. The music was so pure and clean. And
only 20 people, and they delivered.
I couldn't drag people off the streets to come and see this thing. It's frustrating. So some of the best shows I've ever had, nobody's been here for. But, I mean, so it's tough for me. I got to keep thinking about all these shows. There was a Conspiracy. Every time the band Conspiracy played, a ska band of all local Sonoma County kids, they would sell this place out, and the ska pit was just going off.
Oh.
And the feeling of love and home and togetherness was just so important and felt so real. Those shows are in my top 5.
I got it. It's different eras.
Different eras.
Right? Because that early era of metal in here is really...
You guys had...
I mean, Megadeth in here, dude.
Yes,
it's like...
but you know what? Some of those shows that you guys did as kids here...
Yeah, well, those would be full.
They would be full.
It would be fucking like 800 people
And
in
how
here.
could you get over the feeling of those shows? You guys were going off.
You just felt like you made it.
You're looking up and you're seeing local kids be rock stars, and they are.
Yeah.
And how do you not put that in your top 5?
I mean, dude, I think about a few of the shows that I played here.
Yeah.
There's crazy farmers in here that happen to be buddies, because we kind of ran that weird thin line of like some of the farmers were friends.
Absolutely. Petaluma mixed like that even when I was in high school.
Yeah.
You'd be the jocks, the hicks, the hippies. We were all friends together. We were all friends, of the beer, of the keg.
Yeah.
Well, or the joint, whatever it was.
Until people got drunk, and then it was on. It seemed like a thing to do, right?
Yeah, it was,
Just get drunk, beat each other up, and then go home and talk about it. Like, I dotted that fool's eye.
Yes. But then you'd be friends back at school the next day. It was the most incredible time. And nowadays, it's gotten way too dangerous to let that stuff fly.
I can't. There was no guns.
No knives.
There's none of that.
No.
Now, one last thing, and this has always been in a Petaluma story, and I don't know if you know about it, but there's the infamous story that Bon Scott, I believe, maybe on the Highway to Hell tour, was hanging at Volpe's. Do you know this story?
Not only Volpe's, he was hanging out with the Pulsators guys. They were called the Imposters in those days.
So is that a real story?
They were friends of, they somehow the Imposters, I think Johnny Campbell and John Schuster and that crew kind of got to know them, and they ended up at a party up on Sonoma Mountain Road for a while.
Wow.
They ended up over at Volpe's. Yeah, they ended up hanging out in Petaluma for a few days. Yep, and yeah, it's true. At least that's the story I'd heard, and I was kind of on the side of that. I was at a party up on Sonoma Mountain Road where they were up there. I think at Herrera's. It was Paul's older brother, whose name has just left me now. And yeah, he'd hosted a party, and they were all up there at that party.
I'll tell you, one of the most insane memories I have as a kid is where Anderson's is, that street. They're filming the movie Heroes. With Sally Fields.
Yep.
And
they turned into a Vietnam.
Burt Reynolds. Yep. And they dropped down this fake street, and underneath was all cork. So when you looked at the street, it looked like asphalt. And I watched the filming of this. They filmed also at the Petaluma Fair.
Yeah.
And they blew the street up. It was like a Vietnam flashback.
Absolutely.
And it was cork and everything. I remember grabbing a piece and bringing it home with me. I watched the filming of Heroes here, man, for like about a week. They were in town just tearing it up.
Yeah, that was a cool time for a lot of us, because it was right down the street from the theater, and we all got to watch that. That was a gas too. Petaluma's got such a cool history of little weird things that have happened in it.
It's fucking... This city has more stories than it. I mean, you can't even believe. You could do a documentary on Petaluma, and it would be fucking insane.
It would be insane.
Yeah,
if you look
a little Stallone over the top.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to, again, it's one of my favorite stories. Petaluma was involved in one of the only battles during the Civil War in California.
What?
And that's because Petaluma attacked Santa Rosa.
Is that real?
The war was over, and actually Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated. Well, it was a war of words between Sam Cassidy, the editor of the Argus, the Petaluma Argus, and Tommy Thompson.
Argus Courier.
Well, it was the Argus in those days.
Oh,
The
wow.
Argus Courier. Tommy Thompson had the Democrat. Which was the
press Democrat.
Tommy Thompson. The Santa Rosa was a southern-leaning community. They were all farmers. They came out to farm from Missouri and Virginia and Kansas and places like that. So they were all southern-leaning. Their families were all back there in the South. Petaluma was a shipping town. because we had the river, and that's what got us started was the shippers. So all these New Englanders came out, started these shipping businesses. So as the war went on, it was Petaluma, Santa Rosa, fighting in the newspapers. Abraham Lincoln was murdered and assassinated, and the Argus Courier, oh my God, tragedy, this is the worst thing could possibly happen. It was a terrible thing. The Press Democrat said, yes, it's a shame that he was assassinated. However, what do you mean, however? Well, I'm just saying he wasn't necessarily the best. What are you talking about? He was the best president. No, we don't think so. What do you mean you don't think so?
Whoa.
What are you saying? So it back and forth. The Emmett Rifles in Petaluma. Fuck you. Santa Rosa, is that what you think? We knew that's what you thought. We're going to get you. We are coming. They mounted their horses. They rode out Stony Point Road, heading for Santa Rosa. They were going to sack the Press Democrat's office, and maybe they were going to steal the county papers and bring the county seat back to Petaluma, what they felt always should be.
Wow.
They were shocked when Santa Rosa ended up being the county seat. So they mounted their horses, and they're heading for Santa Rosa, and they're going out there, and it had been a dry year, apparently, and it was dusty on that road. And they made it as far as the stage stop, oh, my God. It's out there today. The bar out on Roblar Road.
Oh, fucking.
The Washoe House.
Yeah, the Washoe House.
They made it out to the Washoe House. They dismounted to get a beer. And eventually their wives came out and brought them all home.
Wow.
And that was Petaluma's attack of Santa Rosa.
That's an amazing
They made it
story.
as far as the Washoe House. That truly happened. It really did. And it was recorded and went down as an attack of Santa Rosa and Petaluma. So we have that kind of history in this town.
It's insane.
Yeah, we've been crazy in this town. And Santa Rosa's been crazy. I mean, Sonoma County, what a glorious town.
100%.
County of crazy people.
100%.
But I wonder if every community in America's like that. We're all
I
crazy.
know it's a lot like since we're here and we have so much fucking love, we're like this would be great, and then you put it up on Netflix
right.
and they're like, who cares? But I don't believe in that.
We did
because
that.
when you look at like everything about Petaluma, all the fucking lunacy of it, you know, you really get into all the way up to now. You got to be a multimillionaire to live here.
That's the problem.
That's the problem,
We're
and
gonna
same
lose
with
half of our kids. And
San
that's-
Francisco and all that, you know.
Yeah.
But look at all that crazy history here, you know. And when you look at a
Absolutely.
documentary about that, you would be into it, you know.
Yeah, for me, this has been my life. I thought, because I bought my van and left town at 18 and tripped around the country off and on for several years. But I was looking for something quite different. I wanted to find Mayberry.
Right.
I grew up watching the Andy Griffith
And
Show.
you fucking grew up in Mayberry.
Yeah,
You didn't even know it.
I got back to town and realized, oh my God, this is Mayberry.
It really is.
And I couldn't be happier. I love this town.
I got to thank you, dude, for doing the podcast. And I got to thank you just for a lifetime of incredible memories. And it takes a full-blown, a guy like you just to give your life to kids in rock and roll. It is so unheard of these days. And what you've brought to the community, it just blows my mind. And it was so... I gotta have you on the show because it really is the ground zero of who I am, this room, and bands like Y&T, as I had Dave on and interviewed him. That early vision of rock and roll in this room is who I am to this day, you know? And I can't thank you enough for still being here. And I just, like I said over and over, if I could figure out how to shoot an epic comedy special in here, I want to do it. I gotta get bigger, but it's one of those things. There's like two things in my mind. Like I'd love to do a special in the Cow Palace, but you have to be humongous.
Yeah, you do.
But just to do it in the Cow Palace, the worst room ever, and then the
Yes.
other one here. And maybe you do a documentary comedy special where it's like I shoot one here, one at the Cow Palace, and the juxtapose of back and forth or something. But you know.
Oh, you'd love it. Hey, look, to do it at the Phoenix,
Yeah.
do it as a keger.
Yeah, you're so right? Total nightmare. Just all my old friends show up. They still fight.
Dean Del Rey's keger for crying out loud.
22 keg comedy special.
That's the one.
Dude, you got a website, right?
Probably.
Yeah. There's one on there. I saw like phoenixtheater.com, and it has like photos and history. It shows
Yeah,
you.
we must. When you need to look up our shows.
I love you. You're like here 30 years ago, probably.
Here's the deal about anytime somebody comes to work for me, I do tell them the very first thing I tell them is, look, watch how I do this.
Yeah.
And don't ever run a business like this.
Yeah.
I got no idea what I'm doing. That's probably why it's become the thing.
Yeah. You got some shows coming up? This will be out Monday.
We do. What do we got coming up? It's local stuff. And again, that's how much I suck. I can't remember what I've got coming up from week to week because the names have been rolling so long. Yeah, look us up online.
It's like Groundhog's Day for you, right? You get up, you come down here, there's the graffiti, there's Jimmy on his skateboard.
Yep,
all right.
deal.
Oh, a band's loading in. Who is it today? I don't know. It ain't fucking Primus.
No, it ain't. No,
we got to get Primus back in here.
Oh, see, that was Les, and I don't know if he remembers, but he did tell me, look, here's the thing. When you get a crapper back here, I'll be the first one to come in and christen it.
When you get a what?
We need to get a toilet in the back room.
Oh!
Because, that's the one thing about
Les
Phoenix.
said that?
We don't, yeah. So, and I'm going to hold him to it. One day we're going to...
Yeah, you got to piss and shit. You got to go through the crowd as a rock star.
Yes, you do.
I remember they're like, when Metallica or somebody big played here, they had their, you just went out the back here.
Yeah, we brought porta potties.
Yeah, I remember that, actually.
Well, here's the deal about the Phoenix. Yes, you are a rock star, but so is everybody else in the building.
Yeah.
You're in a building full of rock stars.
But this is going to take you back to the old days.
You bet it is. And that's the problem. That's part of it. Those guys have all gotten older now.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to walk upstairs and take a piss before they play.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the bands would be great here would be like a Metallica. I remember when they did Chemos,
Yes.
during the St. Anger recording session. But like a Metallica in here, and Metallica's got that kind of nostalgia. They love it. They just did that thing where they went back to the house they lived in and rented it for the weekend and put the old flyers up and made it look like when they lived there.
Wow.
They're that kind of guys.
Yeah,
and if you talk to them and you go, hey, you know what, man? Let's do one fucking ripper at the.
We'll bring in porta potties.
Yeah, absolutely. Phoenix Theater one more time. It'd be insane.
We could pull it off. We could still get everybody in and out.
Thank you so much for doing the show, dude.
Thanks a lot.
I love you, and everybody
proving me right.
Check out the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma. Even if you don't go to a show, just pull up, walk in, and say hi to Tom. He's going to be sitting on that damn fucking chair in the lobby.
I am.
They got some old video games in there.
Yeah, we do.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next chapter in this building.
Far out. There's another one coming.
How's your health? Good?
Yeah, I'm in good shape.
That's great, man. So you're 63 now?
Yeah, 62. I got to look.
Yeah.
55, 17, 62.
All right.
I lost a year a couple years ago. I thought I was a year older, and boy, it was such a thrill when I had my birthday and realized, oh my God, I get to relive that year. How cool is that?
Time machine.
Time machine.
Thank you for doing the show,
thanks,
Tom.
Steve.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes, and candles lit.